Welcome to this note. Today we're exploring HTML from absolute first principles. Think of this as your live masterclass. We're going to break down the exact, literal blueprint that powers every single modern web application out there, from the scrappiest startup landing page to massive enterprise SaaS platforms. Okay, let's dive right in.
Now, before we even think about writing a single line of code, we got to ask ourselves a pretty massive question. What is the fundamental language this whole internet thing is built upon? Because whether you're building a cutting-edge AI tool, buying something online, or logging into a company dashboard, there's this hidden architecture running entirely beneath the surface. Today, we're going to learn exactly how to read, write, and really master that architecture.
So, in this note, our agenda covers the digital blueprint, elements and syntax, the document skeleton, nesting and attributes, semantic HTML, and finally, the document object model.
All right, starting with Section 1, HTML, the digital blueprint.
I want you to write this down. HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, is the structural blueprint of the web. It tells web browsers like Chrome or Safari exactly how to structure and display your content. Now notice I said it's a markup language, right? It's not a programming language. It doesn't calculate math or run complex logic. It simply marks up text to give it physical structure. Think of it exactly like the wooden framing of a house. Without it, you just have a messy pile of drywall and paint. But with it, you've got rooms, doors, and a rock-solid foundation to build on.
Moving right along to Section 2, Elements, Tags, and Syntax. Imagine I'm drawing this on a whiteboard for you right now as we dissect the anatomy of just one single HTML element. Let's break this down. The standard workflow for an element involves three distinct parts. First, you've got your opening tag, wrapped in angle brackets, like a P for paragraph. Second, you have the content itself, which is the actual text your user is going to read. And third, the closing tag. It looks identical to the opening tag, but it has this / right before the letter. You know, a super common beginner mistake is simply forgetting that closing slash. When you do that, the browser basically thinks the paragraph just keeps going forever, and it completely breaks your layout.
Now, there's always an exception to the rule, right? Not every element follows that three-part structure. You've also got to know about void elements. These guys are single tags used to embed things like images or line breaks. Because an image isn't wrapping around any text content, it literally doesn't need a closing tag. It just exists entirely on its own.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit for Section 3, the core document skeleton.
Picture a flowchart mapping out your whole document. Every single web page on the internet requires this strict skeletal structure. At the very top, you have the DOCTYPE declaration. This is basically you telling the browser, hey, render this in HTML5 standard mode so things don't break. Next is the root HTML tag, which wraps around everything else. And inside that, we have two siblings, the head and the body. This structure is totally non-negotiable. If you're building a startup landing page today, this is the exact template you're going to start with.
Notice the brilliant relationship here between the head and the body. It's a total division of labor. The head acts as a hidden container for metadata that your users never see. We're talking page titles for browser tabs, SEO keywords for Google, and links to your CSS styles. The body, on the other hand, holds all the visible UI content. Simply put, if you want your user to read it, click it, or watch it, it goes in the body.
Next up, Section 4, Nesting and Attributes.
So, HTML is a nested language. Elements go inside other elements, kind of like those Russian nesting dolls. But, and this is huge, tags must open and close so that they are strictly inside or outside one another. Let's look at the right versus the wrong way to nest here. Overlapping tags is a massive beginner pitfall. If you open a paragraph and then open a strong tag to make some text bold, you absolutely must close the strong tag before you close the paragraph. If you overlap them, the browser has to guess what you meant. And let me tell you, in professional software development, we never want the browser guessing.
Elements also use these things called attributes. These live strictly inside the opening tag and contain extra invisible information about the element. They always follow a simple name equals value format. For instance, an image tag needs an src attribute to know the actual URL of the image it's supposed to load. It also needs an alt attribute, which is just a text description of the image. Why does this matter? Well, if an image fails to load, or if a visually impaired user is using a screen reader, that alt text provides the necessary context. It's an absolutely crucial best practice for accessibility.
Let's pause and think about a real-world business application for a second. If a web page is really just a series of nested, generic boxes, how do external systems like Google search algorithms or an AI scraper mining for data actually derive any meaning from it? How do they know what's a critical navigation bar versus what's just a random blog post?
Well, that brings us right to Section 5, Semantic HTML. Historically, developers used generic tags like div and span to group content. But a div essentially means nothing. It's like packing to move and labeling every single box in your house stuff. Semantic HTML is the practice of using tags that accurately describe the purpose of their content. So instead of a generic div, we use a header tag, a footer tag, an article, or a nav tag for navigation. Replacing those generic tags with semantic ones provides massive business value. It drastically improves your SEO because search engines can easily map your content, and it makes your web app highly accessible for everyone.
All right, let's bring it all together with our final core concept, Section 6, the Document Object Model, or the DOM.
When the browser actually parses your HTML file under the hood, it doesn't just read it flat like a book. It dynamically generates the document object model. This is a hierarchical tree where your HTML is transformed into a highly structured object. And this is essential because this tree is exactly what JavaScript interacts with. When you click a button on a website and a cool menu slides out, yeah, that's JavaScript manipulating the DOM in real time.
Visualize this process on our whiteboard like a massive family tree. The DOM structures all your HTML into parents, children, and siblings, using different types of nodes. The document itself is the root. Every HTML tag becomes an element node. The actual text inside those tags becomes text nodes. By understanding this underlying structure, you understand exactly how to target, style, and animate any part of a web page using code.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Definitely write this down. HTML is not just static text on a page. When parsed by a browser, it becomes a dynamic, interactive model. This DOM is the absolute foundation for all modern web interactivity, from simple little animations all the way up to massive, complex enterprise SaaS applications. If you master the structural blueprints here, writing your JavaScript and CSS later on will be infinitely easier.
Okay, so what did we actually learn today? We learned that HTML is a precise, nested blueprint made of elements, attributes, and semantic tags that the browser magically turns into an interactive DOM. Why does it matter? Because you quite literally cannot build anything on the web without this foundation. So now that you understand this digital blueprint, what can you build with it? Your immediate next step is to open up a code editor, build a well-structured landing page using proper semantic tags, and then start exploring CSS to make it look great. You've got the foundation now, so get out there and go build something amazing.